slightly mad. I'm going slightly mad.
Hello, Aloysius. Hello, everybody. Oh, we're back again with another writing update. You mean you've actually done some? Yes, I've actually done some. Yes. So we're back again with another writing update. But before we start, remember, if you want to support us, there's our shop where we have books and writing materials. There is also our Redbubble shop where we have over 100 designs. We actually have a new book coming out at the end of September, so keep alert for that. That is coming out. Ooh, yeah. We'll tell you more about that later on. And if you want to support us without spending any money, that's cool. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Okay, so you have made progress. Yes, I have made progress. Okay, so now I have actually been writing, and I wasn't actually intending on doing a video. You weren't? No, I wasn't intending on doing a video, except I have been writing a lot, and I've been so focused on that. The idea of reading something else is kind of like, it's not going to happen. It's just, I don't have time. I really need to get back to my book. Really, this is a lot different to last time. It is a lot different to last time. And yes, so I've actually hit that point, which is really, really nice, and it will stop. It won't stay forever. But when you only have limited time, it's like, okay, well, we've got to make this work, because last novel I wrote, yeah, I was getting up at 5:30 in the morning to write before work. Yeah, I did that on Tuesday, not deliberately, but because I'd been writing on Monday, and I woke up with like stuff, and I'm like, I can't leave this. And so I got up and I wrote for an hour before work. Nearly made myself late. Yes, nearly made myself late. And I was wrecked for the rest of the day. It was not a good idea. Not doing that again. I'm not 35 anymore. It's just not possible for me to have that kind of writing arrangement again. So we're not doing that. We also can't write after work because this week's a cooking week. I am going to be knackered. Absolutely knackered. You can't think. And when you're teaching, you are absolutely... It's so many decisions all the time that by the time you get to the end of that, there isn't any energy left for anything, because it's and that's just theory teaching. When you're doing practical, you're wiped out. There's nothing left after that. You've got a year 8 class with knives. Nothing left after that. No, nothing left after that. So I have smaller, like fairly condensed pockets of time where I can actually work on stuff. So that's what I'm doing now. What did I want to talk about? What did you want to talk about? Well, I was sort of I did initially start thinking about word count, but I realized I talked about that last video. But I actually want to talk about something somewhat adjacent to that, and I think it sort of expands on that. Now, I have been working in the TAS faculty. That's the cooking, the sewing, the woodwork, the metalwork, the computer sciences, the engineering, that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting faculty to be working in. And we were discussing the year 12s have been putting in their assignments. Oh yeah, the computer science. And so I was talking with one of the teachers, the computer science teacher, about and actually the woodwork teacher, we're talking about how the students will leave things, will either get so attached to an idea and they're very unwilling to throw it out, or they will leave things really, really late and then try and push that through, having wasted an awful lot of time. And I think that it's something that you actually see across all the disciplines, but it was really interesting to see that in these very practical disciplines, because these are disciplines where we generally think of them as crafts. We think of them as, we don't think of cooking and sewing and woodworking as an art, as like fine arts type of thing. I mean, they are take incredible skill to do, but we think of them more in the craft end of things. And part of the frustration of the teachers is that their students were not putting in the effort. They were not putting in the effort to try it and fail and try it and fail and try it and try it and try it and get a bit better and a bit better and a bit better and a bit better. And it seems to be a bit of an issue. It is an issue across the board for any discipline. The trial and error element is really important, because think about things where you serve an apprenticeship, and that's where this comes in. Nobody makes a cake perfectly the first time, and I'm going to use cooking because, frankly, that's what I'm currently teaching. And I say to the children, I have burnt more dinners than you have eaten at this point. That's an exaggeration. I'm not a bad cook. But it's the idea that, like, until you get a level of skill, you are going to fail. It's just going to happen. You need a level of skill to be able to look at a recipe and know how that's going to work, to know which techniques you're going to bring into that, to know what they mean by things, a term like fold it in. We've all seen that bit from Schitt's Creek. Fold it in, fold it in. What does that mean? It means fold it in. You just fold it in, and if you don't have the technical knowledge, that word means nothing, even though it is a very legitimate term to use in a recipe. You fold it in. This is why part of teaching cooking involves me demonstrating the recipe to the students, so I can say, this is what this is supposed to look like. This is the technique that you use for this. This is the order in which you will do things, because they won't do it in order. It's not enough to just have the recipe there. You actually need the experience and the skill, and you don't gain experience and skill unless you fail. And this made me think about writing. Yes. Well, I've been writing for, I've been writing for 25 years, like actively, no, slightly more than 25 years. I started writing in first year, in my undergraduate degree. I started writing in my undergraduate degree, and until I got to a certain point, I think I threw out about 5 manuscripts. Full length, edited, sent out, rejected, threw away 5 times. That's a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. It feels like a lot. And when you're a novelist, it is a lot, because they take a long time to actually develop. After about 5 manuscripts, I decided, you know what, I'm not getting, each one is getting a little bit better than the last, but I need something to accelerate that. And so that's why I did a master's degree, because I knew there are skills that I don't have and I need to get access to them fast. Yes, fair enough. Yeah, exactly, fair enough. So I did that degree, and after doing that degree, I was able to write a novel that was publishable. That's published, you can buy it, it's on the website. I've written 2 books since then, but I haven't written another novel. So I've got the experience of writing novels, but I threw away a novel because I did not like what I'd started. It was really dragging. I couldn't get motivation for it. I couldn't connect with it. I had changed an awful lot between the idea of the novel and then working on it, and I just didn't want to work on it anymore, so I threw it out. I didn't have something else to do. No, didn't have something else to do, but I just trusted something else will come along, because something else always comes along. Something else came along, which I'm currently working on. But it's completely different. And one of the things that I've had to do is actually learn an entire new skill set. What skill set? Well, I'm learning how to write comedy. Now, people think that's like, oh, that's easy. You just make fun of things. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's like, comedy's really serious. Like, you have to be really serious to make comedy work. Comedy is about manipulation, just like tragedy is about manipulation. I had written a lot of things with, like, sad ending type things. And so I knew how to manipulate people in that way. Now I'm learning how to manipulate people to make them laugh. But to do that, I've had to watch a lot. I've been watching and reading and absorbing a lot of different things. I think getting the flu and spending 3 days feeling like death warmed up was actually kind of useful, because I watch comedy. I watch nothing but comedy, and it goes in and you start to get the cadences of things. You start to get the way that works. And it's like, sometimes watching a rotten comedy, sometimes watching something that doesn't work is far more valuable than watching something that does work, because it's when something does work, you almost can't see how it works. But when you see how something doesn't work, all of a sudden it's like, this doesn't work because of this, and this does work because it does this. And that's really quite an interesting thing to realize, is that ability to, it's like, oh, these are the structures that make that work. And a lot of it is taking the material really seriously, taking it properly seriously, not treating it as, oh, it's a comedy, so it's flippant. No, it's actually really serious. Buster Keaton is a really good example of this. He's a silent film. Yeah, I know he's a silent film. There are no words. I know there's no words. Buster Keaton said that comedy isn't someone doing funny things. It's someone doing something funny. And when you look at the best Buster Keaton, especially like the feature films, so for instance, The General. The General is, look, I will always go The General to explain anything. Like with Buster, I love the construction of The General. I find it endlessly watchable. I find it endlessly fascinating. I love its construction. But when you look at The General, far more than the shorts are generally, don't follow this so much, but he very quickly found that for the feature films, from not 3 ages, but from Our Hospitality onwards, what you need to have is a competent person thrown into a chaotic situation. So The General is a really great example of this, because Johnny Gray is a competent engine driver. He is a competent man in his own little world. He is a respected citizen. He is somebody who, by all accounts, should be, fine, should go fine through life. And then war happens. And then the engine gets stolen. Well, war happens. His girlfriend dumps him. because he's rejected from signing up because he's an engine driver, and then his engine gets stolen, and then it just snowballs. It just snowballs. And it's the snowballing and this person who is otherwise quite competent being put in this extreme situation that makes it funny. It makes it funny. His own characteristics make it funny. Johnny Gray's obliviousness to things around him is part of what makes it funny. He doesn't notice the men aren't chasing the train with him. They've got another idea. They go and try something else. He doesn't notice that he's crossed enemy lines. That is one of the most beautiful shots. Is one of the most technically difficult and beautiful shots in the entire film. He doesn't notice a bunch of different things, and that's where the comedy comes from. Not because Johnny Gray is an idiot, but because chaos erupts around him. And that's a really good way of thinking about some comedy. Comedy can be got out of a character who is otherwise quite sensible, but who either chaos, without their control, chaos erupts around them, or through their own stupid, limited actions, their own character flaws, they cause chaos to become a thing. I think of there's that wonderful, and it's done completely as a silent, no dialogue. There's an episode of Frasier Crane where they all are preparing for these dates that go very badly wrong, and David Hyde Pierce's segment is Niles Crane is trying to iron his pants. He's trying to iron his pants, and it just snowballs. And it snowballs partly because of the fact that of Niles' character, the fact that he's kind of inept at things. He's got very used to the trappings of great wealth and doesn't deal so well with these sorts of things. But it's also, he's then attempting to okay, I'll solve this with this, but then this goes wrong, and this, and this, and this, and it just snowballs. And David Hyde Pierce said that the comedy comes not because it's about being frantic, but it's this went wrong, so let's try and fix this, and then that goes wrong, and then it's the snowball effect of a whole load of little things. But there's a logical, from that character's point of view, there is a logical reason why you move through those different things, and it's what makes that comedy work. And it's a scream. It's absolutely a scream. I think it ends up with pasta dumped on the couch. It like he sets fire to things. If you can ever find it somewhere, if I find it on YouTube, I'll bung it down below, because it is one of the funniest things in Frasier. But Niles is a wonderful character for that, because he's always getting himself into trouble, but it's based on his character and his character's flaws, his neuroticism or anything else about it. So you ground the comedy in the characters, and you ground the characters in reality. So I'm learning these things about how to write comedy. I'm also still well into the Peter Cook stuff, and sort of working out why is that funny. I think of the judge, the E.L. Westy talking about, I never had the Latin. I wanted to be a judge. I'm far too animated to do this because it's so completely deadpan. I wanted to be a judge, but I never had the Latin. I never had the Latin for the judging. That one, which is initially from Beyond the Fringe, and he did it multiple times. But E.L. Westy, part of what makes E.L. Westy those funny. I've watched that far too many times for it to still be funny, but it's still funny. And the more times I watch it, the more I sort of understand what he's doing. And one of the things that he does that makes it so funny is repetition of word. So word repetition. So you get the judging. You get rigorous exams. And the bit that always makes me howl with laughter, because I can't help it. It doesn't matter how many times. When he's talking about the rubbish book and he decided that the most boring book ever about coal mining that he wrote a novel. It's a very short novel. But he decided to spice it up with 3 nude ladies. And it's the way that he says nude ladies. And that choice of words, it's so, it's got this it's got the sexual undercurrent because they're nude ladies, but they're also, it's nude. There's a certain, they're not naked ladies. There's something sort of intimidating about them. So it's like, even if he got nude ladies dancing down the mine, he wouldn't know what to do. He'd just sort of stand there in shock that there are 3 nude ladies dancing in the mine, because that's what they do in his book. It's much more riveting, apparently. But it's also the self-containedness of the nude ladies. They relate to nothing else around them. And he says ladies, not women, so there is that deference to them. It very much speaks of a character who very much wants women, very much wants women's attention, but is absolutely terrified of them, is far too deferential to them, and really has nothing to offer them except this fantasy of 3 nude ladies down the mine. And then it goes on to the 1,000,000 nude ladies. If 3 nude ladies are great, 1,000,000 nude ladies, so just the exaggeration quality of comedy. And I think that comedy is one of those things also that I think people have a tendency to be resistant to dissecting in case it's not stops being funny. But if it's well made, it's going to stay funny. And I would suggest that if you want to have a look at dissecting and yet not losing the comedy, is Laura did one on Billy Carthill, basically because we wanted to read Billy Carthill, which is the funniest thing ever put to words in the English language. Absolutely the funniest thing. So anyway, I've been looking at that, and I've been doing a lot of work, internal work, because as I was talking about last time, I was talking about the fact that I don't believe in drafting. I find that possibly the most tedious idea. And working with the TAS staff, when you work in a craft, and I think this is where actually writing has come a little bit, or actually all the arts have come a little bit. All the arts, I'm going there. I am going there. I see a lot of people, because I spend a bit of time on social media and I scroll through things on Instagram, and I see a lot of people talking about, actually one of the things you see is people saying, my art professor said this was terrible, and they hold up a painting, and you're like, I cannot possibly judge. Now, the reason why I think these rub me up the wrong way is they seem to have an attitude that I've seen a lot among students, and that my colleagues were talking about, is this belief that I'm right, I have nothing to learn from you because I can do this, whatever it is, and you couldn't possibly teach me anything because I'm really good at this. And it sets such a rigid form of thinking that it's like, you start to think, yeah, I bet you persisted in doing that even after your professor or the teacher of the class said, but we're doing abstract expressionism and you are doing something very concrete. And they're trying to get this sympathy for, oh, but this is my art. And it's like, I think the Romantics really screwed everything up. You going there again? Yes. Yes. All the Romantics, except for Keats. Except for Keats. The Romantics really messed everything up. The Romantics plus, I think, a little, currently the nature of the publishing industry messed everything up. Okay, you're going to have to back that one up. I know I'm going to have to back that one up. But the Romantic attitude is very anti-authoritarian, learning anything, and I am so great and I'm the penniless, but nobody recognizes my greatness. Prior to the Romantics, art was not personal expression. Not in that way. Prior to the Romantics, you did an apprenticeship. You worked on a lot of stuff under a master who then told you, okay, well, now you can do the backgrounds in my paintings. Now you can do this in my paintings while I do the hands and faces, and you can fill in these bits. That was how you learnt to paint. And you learnt, that's where a masterpiece comes from. An apprentice graduates as a master when they create a masterpiece, when they prove that they know how to do all the things without wasting materials. That makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. Writing is the same. You don't create a masterpiece while you're still focused on word count, focused on I did it this much today. Word count is a student thing. It's something that's a hangover. Worrying about what your word count is worrying about from I have a deadline and I have to do this, and it's a hangover from school and university. Nobody cares how many words you write in a day. It doesn't matter. What matters is the thing gets finished. And if you are having to rewrite those words, that's worth even less. But in the past, you had a lot more avenues to publication. And so that even when you got to the Romantic period, throughout the 19th century, there were plenty of writers who were not Romantic. They were still more or less Grub Street writers. They took a Grub Street attitude of produce a lot, hope to get some of it published. And produce a lot, get more of it published. Produce a lot, get most of it published. Produce a lot, maybe get very popular. And the more that you produce, the better you get at it. The better you get at it. Okay, think of it like this. Thinking about the woodwork teacher. Now, if the woodwork teacher gives you a piece of expensive wood to work on, that's not for practicing. You're not going to get the expensive piece of wood until they know you can use the lathe properly and you can get the result because you've turned a ton of pine and a ton of cheap wood and you've built those skills, you've built that muscle memory. Writing is a muscle memory, but it's a mental muscle memory. Professional writing should be like, if you are writing to publish, you should be aiming at professionalism. Professional writing should be like being a wood turner, being a chef, being a dressmaker. You should have that muscle memory. You should have that in yourself so that you are not having to redraft the damn thing 10 times. So that it is not taking so long. One of the problems that I will say that I've had lately is I feel like mentally, I feel like I'm sitting, I've got a radio that's tuned between two stations. Really? And half of it's book and half of it's real life. And so if anyone sees me around, I'm not sure if I have any viewers local to me, but if anyone sees me around and I look a little bit dazed, I'm in book world. I'm sorry if I'm not deliberately ignoring you. I'm listening to words in my head. And I'm kind of stuck there at the moment. I don't have a lot of option about this, and especially walking. I find walking helps with that. So if I'm walking along and I look a little bit crazy, I'm generally not talking to myself, but I might look a little bit crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm writing. I'm writing before it gets to the page. So just anyway. So yeah, those are some of our thoughts. I do find, as much as I want to connect with people online who are writers and connect with other writers, when I'm seeing people talking about word count and multiple drafts and stuff, it's like, we're not in the same place, are we? As also, I think the moment someone says, oh, I've written X number of words, it's like, what do you want, a cookie? Okay, this is how it works. It's not actually opening up a conversation. I'm notoriously bad at hitting anything on trend as far as I can see. I couldn't hit a trend with a electrified trend hitting machine. So I'm just sort of out here doing this. But anyway, we're going now? We're going now. Anyway, we'll see you again another time. You want to say bye-bye? Bye-bye. De boca finger, ich bin ja, ich suspirei, sa. Bye-bye! If you would like to support this channel, come across to the Black Cockie Press website, www.blackcockiepress.com.au, where you will find books and other writing services to help with your writing.